Jane Crowley. We are down at the base of Fisherman's Landing on the edge of Schoolhouse Ministers Pond with environmental engineers that designed a stormwater system for us from Horsley and Witten. I am going to just pass it right over to Gemma and Rich to discuss what treatment we are designing here today. Gemma?
Great, thank you so much. My name is Gemma Kite. I am a senior environmental engineer with the Horsley Witten Group.
I am Rich Claytor. I am the president of Horsley Witten Group, and we're certainly happy to be here to show you our design.
And so what you see behind us right now is a big dirt hole, but eventually it will become a stormwater wet swale, which is basically a wetland swale. It's designed to mimic nature and act like a wetland. So stormwater runoff will come down off of Fisherman's Landing Road, enter into the wet swale, and the water will be infiltrated into the soil, and the plants will help to uptake the nutrients and some of the water. And any storms that it can't handle, there's an overflow that it will be discharged into the pond.
So why is it important to eliminate stormwater that would be running off of the hard surface into Schoolhouse Ministers Pond?
Well, stormwater carries a lot of pollutants, number one, and in particular phosphorus that is essentially a source from the decay of leaves and organic matter, as well as out of the natural soil. And then when it runs off of a hard surface, it runs directly into the pond and becomes food for algae. Algae is not good for a pond in large quantities because when it dies, it uses up all the oxygen, and then we can have a lot of negative effects. We call that eutrophication. So eliminating phosphorus in particular, but all the other pollutants. In an area like this, you would expect to have bacteria from either pets or wildlife, birds. We get oil and grease from cars, dripping on the paved surface, and that all runs off, and none of that is good for the natural environment. And the neat thing about a wet swale or a wetland system is it behaves like a natural wetland. It filters pollutants, it traps them in the soils, and it keeps all of that bad stuff from getting out into the pond. This is a great site because, number one, we're right next to the pond. We know the elevation of the pond. We know how high to make this so that we make sure that we ultimately have a wet condition to support the wetland plants that we'll be planting in here.
Certainly, as environmental engineers, you've been working on stormwater projects for decades, I imagine. How is this approach, using plants in the natural environment to do biotreatment, catching on Cape Cod?
I'll start there. We're seeing a big move away from what we call gray infrastructure, which is your traditional pipes, catch basins, manholes, to more nature-based solutions or green stormwater infrastructure, where we're mimicking nature, we're using nature to help treat the stormwater. We've definitely seen more of an uptick of adoption of these practices in the Cape Cod area and on New England. And a big part of that is towns like the town of Eastham adopting these practices, and those becoming educational opportunities for other towns, other organizations to see.
Here at Schoolhouse Ministers Pond, we've tried to do a multifaceted approach to improve the water quality. So we have done in-pond treatment. How important are these stormwater projects in protecting our ponds and our estuaries?
Well, it's one, as you said, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. Once the pollutants get into the pond, they can cause the algae to grow, and so in-pond treatments are appropriate. But if you only did that, you would keep having this source of pollutants coming into the pond. So you have to do kind of both. You have to manage what's already in there, and then you try to prevent excess nutrients from getting in the future. Nutrients are actually beneficial for the environment in the right quantities. It's just when you overload a system that these the ponds can't handle it, and they just become eutrophic or become, green in the summer months. So yeah, you have to do that. We have to be cognizant not just of stormwater sources. We have sources from septic systems. We have sources from legacy pollutants, we call it, that are already in the bottom of the pond, and those will, every summer, they'll just keep coming up. So doing the in-pond treatment and managing the stuff from the coming off the land is sort of the 1-2 punch that you need.
So certainly we've seen a shift from a public safety aspect with stormwater, getting the water off the road, to a mindset where we're trying to remediate and treat the stormwater before it infiltrates back into the land and eventually hits our groundwater. Do you think that these projects will be long lasting and as effective and efficient as the old methods were?
I do, because I think there's a lot of co-benefits that come along with these nature-based solutions or green stormwater infrastructure. So not only are you treating the stormwater before it gets discharged into our water bodies, but you're also creating habitat. You're putting plants in there where the birds, the bees, the butterflies, and other great species will come and live and thrive. You're also creating more shade, so by using trees to help infiltrate and take up that stormwater, you're providing shade coverage. One of the big sort of aspects that we look at is where can we remove impervious cover. So that's your pavement, your sidewalks. So where possible and feasible, as much as we can, we like to remove some of that pavement and put back green space. And so again, that's providing more habitat, more green island effect, if you will, and all those benefits that come with it. So I think a lot of people are not just looking at the safety aspect as we used to with gray infrastructure, but they're looking at the benefits that nature-based solutions can also provide.
Any other thoughts, Rich, on this project?
Yeah, and I would point out that this particular practice, when it grows in with the wetland plants and the plants that are going to be along the edge of this wetland, will be very low maintenance. It's not going to require a lot of active, meddling. We do expect to see sediment coming in. Where we're standing is going to be a facility to easily collect that sediment and remove it. But the area behind the now dirt hole in the ground will be green vegetation. It'll have water in it, frogs, turtles, aquatic species and upland species, and we shouldn't have to mess with it for many, many years. So that's the other advantage, is we think these natural systems to some extent are self-maintaining if you keep the sediment out of them in the first place.
Thank you very much for listening to our demonstration and showing our project on stormwater improvement here at Schoolhouse Ministers Pond, and we look forward to seeing it grow in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.